So the Batman is going to have 6 villains in his new film. This report is coming from We Got This Covered. You know, they're not as reputable as Variety or Deadline, but they're saying they have multiple sources that are confirming this. So let's just get into the villains and what I think they're going to do with the villains. So right now it's being reported that the Penguin, Catwoman, Riddler, Two-Face, Firefly, and Mad Hatter are all going to be in the next Batman movie starring Robert Pattinson and directed by Matt Reeves. And apparently, We Got This Covered is also reporting that there will be a secret twist villain in the movie. And We Got This Covered is also talking about how it could possibly be Hush. And I completely understand why they would think that, you know? Like, that's exactly what I'm thinking when I see there's 6 villains in this Batman movie. Because in the Batman Hush graphic novel, we see Batman go through most of his rogues gallery. The end twist, actually, is that Riddler is behind everything, I believe. Batman's trying to track down Hush the whole book, but eventually we realize that Riddler's behind everything. But yeah, when I see 6 villains in a Batman movie, I'm thinking they're doing Hush, and that Hush is going to be the surprise villain at the end. But there's a couple things wrong with that. Number one, it really wouldn't be that big of a surprise to hardcore comic book fans. And number two, the mainstream audience, the general audience, they wouldn't care that Hush is the secret villain. You know, they'll see Hush in the movie and they'll go, who the fuck is that? That's what their reaction will be if Hush is the secret villain. So just based off of that alone, I think Matt Reeves is going to try to go a recognizable villain route, and the secret villain might just be the Joker, even though that's super generic, and the Joker role has been done to death. They might go that route because that's a very recognizable villain. Or it might be Bane. I could see them doing Bane or something because he's definitely a more mainstream now because of The Dark Knight Rises. Or Mr. Freeze. There's a couple of different ones they could do that the mainstream will recognize because Batman's rogues gallery is just that good. It's that deep. But Hush is like the one I don't think most general audiences would recognize or care about. So it really wouldn't be much of an impact for him to be the secret villain. So that's the only reason why I'm thinking Hush is definitely not going to be the secret villain. But it would make perfect sense if he was. But on to what I really want to talk about, and that's what I think they're going to do with all these 6 villains in the movie. Obviously, Matt Reeves is trying to create a new version of Gotham we haven't seen. Something that's more true to probably the video games and comics, right? I would say more in line with the Arkham series. I think that's the direction they're going. And I think probably like Two-Face is going to be in jail in Arkham already. So Batman's already going to be past the first few years. And these villains are already going to be established. At least that's what I hope they're doing. Because I don't need to see origins of these villains. Maybe a flashback here and there, but I don't need to see their whole origin before I accept them as the villain, you know? And most general audiences do know who the Penguin is. They know who Two-Face is. They know who Catwoman is. Some of them might know who Mad Hatter is, and that's because of Alice in Wonderland. And most of them probably know the Riddler from the TV show and the movie, the Jim Carrey one. So a lot of these villains are very recognizable, and I don't think audiences need origins for them. They get the gist. It's time to progress the story a little bit. And I think they're going to have Batman in his, 5th years being Batman. I think that's what the movie's going to take place as. And he's already put some of these villains in Arkham. And he's probably trying to take down the Penguin, because the Penguin's, more of a mob boss type. He has other people do his dirty work for him. And that's why it's harder for Batman to bring him down. It's a different type of foe for Batman. So I think probably Penguin is going to be the main, villain that we see in, the first and second act, right? He's going to be the main guy Batman's trying to take down. And Firefly, he's going to start the movie, right? Firefly is going to be the first villain in the opening 10 minutes. Batman will be chasing him down, just like in Arkham, where you're chasing Firefly on the bridge, you know? There'll be a nice moment like that. We'll see Batman be Batman, take down Firefly right to start the film. So you see how efficient Batman is at taking down criminals, especially the super villainy type, right? And Firefly is a throwaway villain like that. There's no reason to have a whole movie based on Firefly. He's the guy that Batman takes down real quick and puts him in jail real quick, you know? He's the one that's going to introduce us to Batman, right? So, boom, that's one villain down. Catwoman, I could see that this movie might be the first time they're meeting, but if Matt Reeves really wants to go for the full fleshed out world, he'll skip the part where Catwoman's a villain, and he'll go straight to the anti-hero Catwoman that's kind of friends with Batman. That's Batman's lover, really. I think they should already be at that point, or about to get to that point. Catwoman and Batman should have like a mutual respect for each other and stuff. They should already be at that point when this movie starts, because once again, we don't need to see them get to that point to know that, you know? It's pretty mainstream at this point that Catwoman is Batman's ally. I think a lot of people already know that. So we really don't need to see that progression. And for comic book fans, it's already like common knowledge by now that Batman and Catwoman are lovers, and Batman will never really take down Catwoman because he just loves her that much. So why not just start the movie with already that dynamic between them? Maybe they already did it. Maybe they're having a falling out. Maybe they're starting to break up a little bit. Do that. That would be more interesting than, you know, actually seeing them become allies. Show the falling out of them. That would be interesting. And that could easily be Catwoman's role in this movie. So all of a sudden, we're down to 5 villains. We know what the Penguin's going to be. He's going to be that mob boss villain that Batman's trying to take out for most of the film. So, all right, now we're down to 4 villains. Mad Hatter. First of all, if they don't get Peter Dinklage to be Mad Hatter, this movie's a fail. I mean, if Mad Hatter is really in this film, you better get Peter Dinklage to be Mad Hatter. Like, I don't understand how they could fuck that up, you know? Just definitely get the best little person actor on the planet, you know, to be Mad Hatter. It's that simple. Give him a big-ass hat and make this like Batman's second time he's dealing with the Mad Hatter. Like, Mad Hatter broke out of Arkham, Batman finds out and starts to go after him. Right after taking out Firefly and learning more about the Penguin, he sees that the Mad Hatter broke out of Arkham again, so he's gonna go after Mad Hatter. And that's where we get some flashbacks to maybe Batman's childhood with the Alice in Wonderland, his mom reading him Alice in Wonderland and stuff like that. Because this movie is going to be Batman falling down the rabbit hole. So it makes sense why Mad Hatter is in here, to start that process, to start Batman falling down the rabbit hole and going through his other villains and stuff to eventually get to the secret villain that's at the end of the rabbit hole, right? I think that's the direction they're going, right? But make it clear that Mad Hatter is clearly working for somebody else. I think that should be like the main thing with his character. So Peter Dinklage is Mad Hatter, Batman's about to take him down again. But it's clear that Mad Hatter is just a distraction for Batman. There's something else going on. And maybe Batman finds his first riddle. Maybe that would be an interesting twist to the movie. That this is Batman's first encounter with the Riddler. And he's making him go through his other villains' his rogues gallery. But just to backtrack a moment, maybe after the Firefly sequence, right? We get a callback to the Dark Knight Returns. And we see Harvey Dent on the news. And his face is healed. And they're saying he's cured, he's not crazy anymore, right? And Harvey Dent's thanking them and stuff, just like the Dark Knight Returns. And then later in the film, after Batman takes down Mad Hatter, he finds out that Harvey Dent has burned his face again, is wearing bandages just like Hush, right? And we can get that Dark Knight Returns moment where Batman's taking off the bandages and saying, "What did you do?" You know, that would be a great moment to have in the movie. But then we learn that somebody wanted Harvey Dent out of Arkham. And then we find one of the doctors that was working with Harvey was forced to let Harvey be released. Even though Harvey Dent was clearly not mentally ready to be released. The doctor let him go anyway because the doctor's being blackmailed by some other villain in the background. Which in the end could be the Riddler. You know, it could be a villain like that that's working behind the scenes in the shadows and stuff like that. Leading Batman through this rabbit hole of villains and stuff like that. And then we get to the point where even Penguin is being blackmailed by the secret villain or the Riddler. You know, it's just, you really gotta wonder what role Riddler is gonna play in this movie and who the secret villain is gonna be. Because the Riddler is the type of character that's a fun character in the books. His lines are very comical, and he's scrawny, and he's no physical threat to Batman. And most of the time when you read comic books, you don't take the Riddler very seriously until the end of the book where you realize that he's been behind everything. There's been a few different books like that already that are like legendary. One of them is Hush, and he can be very intimidating. You know, he kills random civilians if they can't solve his riddles. You know, he's a crazy motherfucker. So that pretty much covers all the villains in this movie, right? You got Firefly, who's probably gonna get caught at the beginning of the film. You got Catwoman, who's probably gonna be Batman's ally for most of the film. Maybe they have a falling out. Penguin, he's gonna be the mob boss villain that Batman's going after for most of the film. Mad Hatter's gonna be a threat Batman has to deal with. And then Two-Face will be the next threat that are just mainly distractions for Batman. Because what do the two things Mad Hatter and Two-Face have in common? They're both reminders of Batman's past. With Mad Hatter, it's Alice in Wonderland. It's his mom reading Alice in Wonderland to him. So that brings him back to Martha, you know. So that brings him back to that whole Martha thing, which could be a nice callback to BVS, which I wouldn't mind if Matt Reeves does. So that's a connection to Batman's past. But Two-Face is also a connection to Batman's past. Two-Face is Batman's first, like, real failure. Two-Face was Batman's best friend as Harvey Dent, and he didn't protect Two-Face, and Two-Face fell down, you know, his whole disparity and became Two-Face, right? And it was Batman's first true failure. So you have a few villains here that are already dealing with Batman's past, and then you got the Riddler, who's the sixth villain in the movie, and I think he's going to be the main bad guy that's behind everything. Even behind the secret villain. Whoever the secret villain is, I think Riddler will also be involved in that, right? Riddler is going to be the mastermind, because we've been waiting a long time to see Riddler as a true mastermind in the movies. You had Jim Carrey, but that was a very corny Riddler that was working with Two-Face. It was just very corny. But Riddler helping Two-Face escape Arkham, that would be a cool callback to Batman Forever, even though I'm sure nobody wants those kind of callbacks. But yeah, Riddler should be the mastermind. He should be the guy causing all these villains to escape and stuff like that. And he should be behind whoever the secret villain is. And if they do go the Joker route, because that's like more general audience appealing, they could have the Joker kill the Riddler in some way, you know? And I know a lot of people are like, well, kill the Riddler. You can't kill the Riddler. But when you think about it, you know, this Batman series isn't going to last forever. We're talking like, you know, a solid 3 movies maybe, depending on how the box office is. You know, why pretend like we're going to get 10 movies out of this? And I think a full movie where Riddler's the mastermind, he's behind everything, he's the main villain, and he dies at the end, that would be enough of a Riddler fix for everybody. Because Batman has so many villains, you could keep going forever. You could make 100 movies just off every single villain that he has. So, yeah, this first movie, you should have at least one of these villains die. And out of all of them, I think Riddler could easily die. And I think it would be fine. I think people would be fine with it. Especially if he's the main bad guy in this first Batman film, right? But as for the secret villain, it could be a Joker because that's what general audiences recognize. It could be a Bane because Bane is also a big villain people recognize. It could be a Mr. Freeze. I think whoever the secret villain is going to be one of the most known villains to the Batman's Rogues Gallery. Just so general audiences could be like, oh my god, it's this character I know. You know, like, I think that's the route they're going to be going. If it was Hush, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. All us comic book fans would lose our minds. We would be geeking out hard. But it's like that thing where you have an inside joke that no one else gets, right? Like, we would be the only ones freaking out in the theater, and everybody else would be like, who the fuck is that? And I don't know if WB is willing to take that risk because, you know, they have no backbone. They're cowards. They're reactionary. And they're going to do anything that's going to make them the most amount of money. And having a super recognizable Batman villain as the secret villain is the smart, easy choice. It's the easy money choice. But then again, I don't know how you could keep a Joker secret in this movie. Like, how would that not leak out that Joker's in the movie? Or a Bane, you know, how could you keep these people hidden? You really couldn't, unless Robert Pattinson is playing 2 roles in the movie. He's playing Bruce Wayne and he's playing Hush. You know, as we know, Hush makes his face look just like Bruce Wayne. Thomas Elliott is Hush. He used to be Batman's best friend. He becomes a plastic surgeon and he switches around his own face to make him look like anybody. And usually what the big twist is that he makes himself look like Bruce Wayne. And if Hush was the bad guy in the movie, I could see that as a big reveal. You know, he takes off the bandages and it's just Robert Pattinson, you know? Like, and that's how they could keep it secret, because Robert Pattinson would be playing 2 roles. So, yeah, maybe they would go the Hush route, but I think they would go the easy money route and just put a big villain there. But anyway, that's it for now. Comment below. Let me know what you think these villains are going to do in this movie, why they're in the movie. And that's it for now. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.